For many years, the perception of pirates has been of ferocious individuals wearing eye patches, wooden legs, and striped black and white clothing. The truth is, however, if you dig deep into the history of the pirates, you'll find that they were much more than simply your standard Captain Jack Sparrow. Among the dreadful pirates were: Number 1. Blackbeard. Captain Edward Teach, or Thatch, born in England, was one of the most dreadful pirates to ever cruise the seven seas. He was also commonly referred to as Blackbeard because of the lengthy black beard that he had on most of his face. All those who had the misfortune of stumbling across him were filled with dread. He appeared to have coiled blazing fuses on the braids and slung firearms, pistols, and daggers across his chest, while intimidating foes by boarding their ships in a cloud of smoke. It is known that Edward Teach spent most of his time sailing throughout the northern provinces of America and the West Indies. And though his past is not well known, Thatch might have begun the war as a sailor on British privateer ships that attacked French and Spanish ships. A French commerce ship was taken by Blackbeard in late 1717, and he christened it the Queen Anne's Revenge. He armed it with more than 40 cannons, rifles, and other weapons, and this served as the starting point for his piracy. He had a reputation for being the worst and cruelest pirate to have set sail, and one of his most well-known acts is the blockade of Charlestown in South Carolina. During the instance, Blackbeard prevented all ships from leaving or entering the port. In addition, Blackbeard pillaged every ship that tried to pass him. Blackbeard captured several of the passengers and a member of the Council of South Carolina who was on board one of the ships. He requested a sizable amount of medication, and the convicts were released when the demands were satisfied. Nevertheless, like every other villain, on November 22, 1718, Teach was also slain by Lieutenant Maynard at Ocracoke Island, putting a stop to his piracy. The most dreadful pirate was shot 5 times, stabbed 20 times, and ultimately, with his head fastened to Lieutenant Maynard's bowsprit so he could receive a reward, his corpse was dumped into the water. Number 2. John Rackham. John Rackham, an English pirate who operated during the golden age of piracy, earned the nickname Calico Jack due to his fondness for colorful calico cloth. When the English sent out royal pardons to pirates across the Caribbean, Rackham denied it and continued his life of piracy, eventually gaining his first command when a group of pirates led by Vane disagreed about whether or not to fight with a French warship. Rackham assumed charge of Vane's ship after Vane attempted to depart the battleship while he and the other pirates who had sided with him in the argument were marooned. The first significant loot that Rackham made was when he captured the merchant ship Kingston. However, this action resulted in the local merchants placing a price on its head. When the bounty hunters finally caught up with him, he and his were able to get away, but were forced to abandon their ships and all of their loot. After that, Rackham beseeched the king for a pardon and became involved with Anne Bonny, who immediately persuaded him to board a ship and resume his life as a pirate. Together, they were in command of a ship that preyed on unsuspecting merchants off the coast of Jamaica until they were finally apprehended. The execution of Rackham took place in Port Royal. The most important thing that Rackham ever contributed to history was the design of the pirate flag. Every pirate captain designed his flag, but his design, which included a white skull over a black backdrop and crossed swords, became the standard for all pirate flags. Number 3. Madame Cheng. Madame Cheng was among the most dreadful pirates to haunt the Chinese seas. Xiang was her birth name, and she began her profession as a Chinese prostitute in 1775. She wed Cheng I, a well-known pirate, in 1801. Cheng's family has a significant criminal history and a reputation for effective pirating. He oversaw a pirate fleet with over 400 ships and 50,000 crew members. In addition to giving birth to 2 additional sons, Chen Yingshi and Cheng Shangshi, Madame Cheng also adopted Cheng I's son Chang Pao. After Cheng I passed away a few years after their marriage, Madame Cheng assumed control of the Red Flag fleet. Chang Pao, her adoptive son, and lover assisted her in growing the dreadful pirate fleet to 1,800 ships and over 80,000 sailors. He succeeded her as her second in command and fleet lieutenant. Yang issued a code of laws and unified her fleet. The rule was carefully followed, and those who disobeyed their commanders or took from the peasants who provided the pirates with their needs would be beheaded. Additionally, before being distributed, any items taken as booty had to be registered and brought for inspection. Madame Cheng also had guidelines for female prisoners. Pirates frequently would attractive captives, and they had to be devoted spouses. The ugly females were either freed or used for demanding ransom. those who sexually assaulted the captives were beheaded. Whipping, chopping off ears, and clapping in irons were among the punishments meted out for breaking the code. When the Portuguese Navy defeated Madame Cheng's fleet, she concluded that she would not be able to continue this life. So in the year 1810, she petitioned the Chinese authorities for forgiveness. After that, she wed her adoptive son and became pregnant with her husband's child. After Chang passed away in 1822, she returned to her childhood home and operated a gambling business as well as a brothel there. Number 4. Anne Bonny. Anne Bonny was the illegitimate daughter of Irish attorney William Cormac and Mary Brennan, a housekeeper for him. Bonny always had a reputation for being a tough person, and several tales circulate about her youth, including one in which she allegedly killed a maid with a knife and another in which she sent a young man to the hospital for weeks after he attempted to sexually assault her but failed. She is rumored to also have rejected her father's choice of husband. She went a sea captain instead and relocated to the Bahamas. Nonetheless, dissatisfied with their marriage, Bonny associated with John Calico Jack Rackham and boarded a ship with him, plundering the waters off the coast of Jamaica. Bonny participated in piracy while disguising herself as a man. However, after a few months had passed, her crew was eventually apprehended and brought to trial. As a result of the discovery that both Bonny and her female friend Mary Read were expecting a child, their sentences were commuted to life in prison. While Read was still incarcerated, Bonny was eventually set free. She eventually settled down, got married, and spent the rest of her life raising a family. Number 5. Henry Every. Although we are aware that Henry Every was a slave trader, little is known about his early years. Later, he was promoted to first mate of Charles II, a privateering ship. He led Charles II's crew in a mutiny, took command of the vessel, changed her name to the Fancy, and sailed for Africa to rob maritime channels. The crew increased their numbers, though they were 150 strong, by taking several French and Danish ships. With the increased power, Henry went after Indian flotillas. With the successful capture of highly fortified ships, loaded with treasure valued at hundreds of thousands of British pounds, he amassed enormous money. He even conducted a brutal attack on the Mughal flagship, the Ganges Suwaid, in 1695. The Indian soldiers were forced to retreat after a fierce struggle, and when their captain deserted them, Every quickly gained possession of the ship. His notoriously nasty company sexually assaulted the women and harassed the males, forcing some of them to commit suicide to escape the marauders. The attack resulted in the theft of jewelry, gold, and silver that now would be valued at tens of millions of dollars. Every's men divided the loot among themselves and then sailed for the Bahamas to unwind. The British made an effort to find Every and his men, but they dispersed over the globe and retired with their fortune. Only a few of them were ever located and put to death. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.